What's up, guys? Welcome back to Crazy for KV's RC. I'm Tim. Welcome back to this episode of the Garage Tour. So we're on episode 8. And this week we're going to be talking about my Groundfox build. So this is built on a Element Enduro chassis, and did a swap over to the Artful Dodgers Groundfox. A couple of cool things about it. It's a flat rail chassis, first flat rail I ever had. It's the only one I have. It also has some pretty nice features where it kind of clocks the transmission, kind of get that motor laid down so the CG is a little bit better. Really helps kind of bring this thing as like a LCG, belly draggers, a lot of people call them, cheater truck, whatever you want to call it. This was kind of the whole idea of building this truck in mind. As you guys are watching this, I'll be hitting you guys with some B-roll as I go over some things. But yeah, we'll jump right into it. Artful Dodgers Groundfox originally came out as a aftermarket enduro chassis for the Elements. Since then, they have come out with a VS410, and that kind of pairs nicely with the chassis kit they were offering for the holidays. But I think those are over now. You might be able to get them at some of the retailers like A-Main, maybe Horizon has them as well, but they're definitely few and far between at this point. I do have one in the closet ready to be built, but got some other projects, so you guys will have to stay tuned for that. Go ahead and subscribe though so you don't miss it. So yeah, you guys can see it's a pretty low slung truck. Weighs about just under 5 pounds. I think it's like 4 pounds 11 ounces. I'll probably throw a weight here. So it's sitting on a J Concepts creep body, right on some J Concepts tusks. Those are kind of J Concepts Mickey Thompson Baja Pro X. They're not a licensed tire, but the tread pattern is extremely similar. So I went down the route of building this truck basically because I wanted to build a flat rail, but didn't really want to go through all the figuring of, oh, do I need custom links or do I need to source different length links to make it work? The skid plates, the sliders, the chassis braces, all that, it's all included. It is a pretty expensive chassis swap, the Artful Dodgers Groundfox. I don't remember what I paid for it. I think it was over $200 though, so not a cheap option. Pretty good experience though, as far as the build goes. The instructions are great. The packaging was pretty good. There's a few screws that were missing, but I have K&K hardware, like bulk packs, all sorted, and made it real easy to source those bolts that were needed. So aside from the Groundfox and some basic element components, this truck's also sitting on SSD Diamond axles. Those are kind of nice. They're kind of a hybrid between a plastic and a metal axle. You get a plastic pumpkin, but it's a multi-piece axle, so it all kind of bolts together. And the tubes of the axle are aluminum, so that makes it pretty nice. The Diamond pumpkin is kind of a Curry. It's kind of similar to like a Vanquish Curry F9 or just a Curry axle. Way more low profile than the standard Element axles, and that's one reason I went to those. Didn't really care about the aluminum. Actually, kind of wanted to avoid the weight. I was trying to keep this about 4.5 pounds, and we just went over that. But I do have some bolted on weight, so it would be probably right at about 4.25, 4.5 without that. So you can see the truck. Paint job's alright. It's got some metal flake in it. It looks pretty good. It actually looks really good in the sun. I got quite a few compliments on it the first time I had it out, but I kind of butchered it, cutting the body posts out, and I'll get you guys a close-up shot of that. But no stickers, nothing fancy. Did a little window tint just to kind of hide the electronics in there a little. But these LCG rigs they're fun. They're really capable, but they don't necessarily have like the scale realism. They can do things that most trucks cannot. I would say capability wise it's pretty close to my 4-wheel steer axial Capra you guys have already seen. Yeah, it's a fun truck. I've had it out a few times. It does well. My electronics setup is a Mamba Micro X2. That's a Gen 2 of those. They got a little bit stronger BEC in them. I think they run a little bit cooler, a little higher amperage as well. And that's powering a Holmes Hobby 10 shooter. So that's a censored brushless 2700 kV motor, and it's a great setup. It's real small. Those 10 shooters are a little bit, it's a 10 pole motor, so a little bit smoother even than you get with like a Polar Pro or something like that. I do need to do a little bit more trimming on the body. I get quite a bit of tire rub, and that's alright, I'll get to that though. On the rear we have a TGH modular bumper, which is intended for the front, but I threw it on the back just to keep the bed from getting hung up on rocks, on descents and real steep climbs and getting hung up. Give it something to kind of protect it. The front's not running any bumper at all. The body's kind of pressed right up against the chassis braces, so didn't really feel a need for it. Not too big of a deal. Servo I'm running this is a Reeves 777, and it's actually a pretty slick setup in this Groundfox chassis. It actually lays the servo parallel to the ground, so it kind of sits in a horizontal orientation like a servo on axle would, but it is still servo on chassis, so pretty cool. Other than that, I got one of the small receivers for the FlySky Noble NV4. Small little battery tray. I run little 850s in here, 3S packs, and yeah, it's pretty fun. Stock links, stock element suspension, kind of sitting in like a half droop. Real soft springs on here, but it does well. It doesn't have the ground clearance that I'm used to, so I do belly out when I'm driving it a little bit more. And we're going to take it out for a drive here in a minute, and you guys are going to see that the terrain that I drive on isn't really challenging for this. So it's more of just a kind of a demo, and this does a lot better at places with much more challenging terrain. But that's it. We're going to go take it outside, check it out, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright guys, we're back out here. Same spot you always see. A little winded from almost falling. Got my only flat rail build out here. This is a Artful Dodgers Groundfox. You guys have already seen it. Set up on a Element-based chassis. Set up with an Element Stealth X transmission. It's got SSD axles you saw. Those are kind of half plastic, half metal. Kind of minimizes the size of those pumpkins though. Yeah, got that 10 shooter from Holmes, Mamba Micro X2, and 888 from Reeves direct power servo. So got a tiny little 850 in there. This truck weighs about 4.5 pounds, so let's see what it can do. It should conquer everything out here pretty easy. The body does need to be trimmed a little more. So you guys are going to hear some major rubbing, and I may eventually switch over to a voiceover if it gets really bad. Yeah guys, I tried to do this video with the organic audio, and the body rubbing and just the pinion spur gear mesh is just so loud. I can't remember. I think this truck actually has a plastic spur gear on it, but it's noisy. Might need to check the mesh on it, but really every time I turn, those lugs on those J-Concepts tusks just start chewing into the body, and I really need to try to get it trimmed up so that doesn't happen. So starting off with some pretty easy stuff, just getting into some of the more technical things, and figured instead of walking it over there, you know, film a little and see if we can hit any fun lines, or just kind of check the truck out as we go. I failed to mention earlier that this truck is sitting on Vanquish Method 105s in that bronze color, and they look pretty awesome, and they kind of match that to me copper that I went with on the body. Not a perfect match, but I think they complement each other enough. But inside those tusks, we do have Crawl Innovations Little Novas, 4.75 dual stage foams, and got those in soft because this truck is so light, you know, being right at just a little over 5 pounds. If I took those wheel weights out of the front, I think we would be under 5 pounds. Those are actually pretty substantial. The tires and wheels really perform pretty well. One of the beefs I have with the Elements is the steering angles. I may have mentioned it already in the Gatekeeper video. or the my Pirate Wagon video, but it's yeah, their steering angles on those Element axles just are not great. Once you start utilizing axles like the F10s that come on the Phoenix Portal, you get really spoiled. Those steering angles are wild. I think they're well over 45 degrees. I think they're in the 50s. And you throw some serious overdrive in and it's basically dig by itself. You guys can see here that Mamba Micro X2 and that 10 shooter, you get pretty good low speed resolution. A lot of guys are scared to go a little higher on the KV. They only sell, Holmes Hobbies only sells that 10 shooter in 1 KV, I believe. And it's a 2700, but as you can see, you get very good low speed resolution. And I think there might be a little bit of me giving it a bump later. Nothing crazy, but it's got enough wheel speed for this truck. This isn't intended to be really a trailer. This is kind of a pure, competitive minded crawler. I don't follow Sorca really. I'm kind of familiar with some of the rules, but I know they just recently went through a full revamp of the rules, and I have no idea if this would be legal in any of them. I think it would be class 3 legal, but it would absolutely get destroyed probably, and my driving definitely would. You can see there the LCG, that low belly, they kind of get hung up. If you're used to the higher trucks, they do tend to drag a little bit more. Here you can see I'm approaching probably one of the coolest obstacles out here, kind of depending on the way you do approach it, but it is pretty technical even getting in there. As you approach, you kind of want to come up through that little ditch you see at the bottom of the screen. You see I had to get a reposition. No shame there. It's my 3rd time driving this truck, I believe, and just not super familiar with it. And you can see the steering angles. I need to check and make sure I'm at the bump stops, because if it's got more, it definitely could utilize a little bit more steering angle. You can see the toss really work well. The soft foams in there, you get a little bit of bite, little wrinkle in the tire, but great sidewall support, and we pulled right out of there. Here's another pretty challenging obstacle I found. Kind of a off camber, very steep incline. I'm trying to get my passenger tire hooked. You saw it finally got up there, and once you got it in position, it pretty much walks right up. Not doing a whole lot of spinning, a little bit right there. I got a little too far driver, but yeah, it basically just crawls it at minimum speed necessary. And that's just a combination of a good power system, nice ESC, good motor, lots of resolution, and honestly probably more wheel tire combo as well as foams. We're just dropping down there and I just happened to cut it. I was kind of taking my sweet time getting repositioned, but backed out there just to keep that rear driver from tumbling over, and just like it did there, and just a little bit of throttle and get out of there. Didn't go the way I wanted, but as West Desert Wheeler says, he's one of my favorite channels, we kept the rubber side down. That's the important part. This truck's a ton of fun though. I'm glad I was able to get it out and run it. All right guys, that's my flat rail. That's the Artful Dodgers Groundfox, Element transmission, Element based axles. So let me know in the comments down below what you think, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks for checking out Crazy for KV's RC and making it to the end of the video. If you like what you saw, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know if there's something you'd like to see me do or do differently. Open to feedback. Check me out on Instagram. That's crazyforkvs_RC. Link down below as well. And first episode of the podcast is live, and you can find that on Spotify or Anchor FM. Links in the description. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys next time.